Well, welcome back. We stepped outside to take a look at the moon, and we have some clouds going on right now. So Sarah, up at the telescope, Sarah Birchler, who's our manages all of our public programs and is fighting the clouds tonight. We're kind of go back and forth between live views and some stored images we have as the clouds permit. So the good thing is most of the time we've been able to see the live view up till this point. So we're going to watch another video right now about Artemis. And Artemis is the mission we were talking about earlier, the next crewed mission to the moon. And Gavin Moriarty is going to talk about Artemis. And I'm not sure if we'll talk about the name, but the original mission to the moon was Apollo, and Artemis was Apollo's sister. And that's important because one of the first goals of Artemis is to send females and people of color to the moon. And then from that, there's going to be so many more missions and moon bases and all that stuff that's being planned. So let's go to Gavin's video right now.
Hi, I'm Gavin Moriarty. I'm an educator here at Lowell Observatory. We are just around the corner from the biggest human space exploration in over 50 years. NASA's Artemis mission will be the next step in human space exploration. By 2025, NASA plans to land the first woman and person of color on the surface of the moon. Let's see what we can expect from NASA in the coming years. The Artemis missions are just about to start, and by soon, I mean like this year. At the end of April, NASA just completed their wet dress rehearsal. This is exactly what you think of a dress rehearsal, with taking the rocket onto the launch pad and going through all the motions of a real launch, but the wet part of it means that they fueled the rocket, and so they could actually test all the fueling systems before launch as well. And it's a good thing that they did, because they did find some problems, and they're currently already fixing them, and so we're expecting a launch in August of this year, somewhere around there. So what are these missions actually going to look like? The first one will launch in August of this year, and that will be an uncrewed mission where the Space Launch System, the new rocket that NASA is going to be sending up, will have the Orion capsule on it, and they're going to do an uncrewed mission that will last about a month, just going through the orbits of the Earth and the Moon. And then in 2024, we'll get the first crewed mission. This will be called Artemis 2. And this will act the exact same as the uncrewed mission, going around Earth and the Moon as flybys, and will still last about a month. And then the best part, in 2025, we'll have Artemis 3. That is going to be the crewed mission where we will land on the moon for the first time since 1972. On that mission, 4 people will launch in the Orion capsule, and 2 of them will be chosen to walk on the surface of the moon. They'll spend about 6 days there doing scientific observations and testing out some systems. And hopefully, if all goes well, we'll get more missions following Artemis 3 in 2025. That's not the only thing that NASA has planned in the coming future. As well as the Artemis mission, NASA is also planning to build their Lunar Gateway Station, which is going to be an orbiting space station around the moon that will be a checkpoint for future moon missions and for hopeful human deep space travels. And so they're already building pieces for that. We're hoping the first pieces will go up in 2024, and the important pieces, with including the human landing system, will be there by the time Artemis 3 reaches the moon in 2025. And then after this, they'll keep adding pieces onto it, more science, propulsion systems, and my personal favorite, the Canadarm3. Away from the moon, NASA also has the Psyche missions happening. And so the Psyche is actually an asteroid in the asteroid belt that we think could have actually been the core of an early planet of our solar system. And so the Psyche mission is currently in development by NASA's JPL, or Jet Propulsion Labs, and is being tested for hopefully launching at the same time as Artemis 1 in August of this year. And so that'll take a couple years to get to the asteroid in question. It'll do a little slingshot around Mars, a little flyby, and then it'll meet up with its asteroid in 2026. And then it'll spend about 20 months or so orbiting around this asteroid and mapping it out, trying to study the properties of it so that hopefully we can understand a little bit more of what actually happened in the early solar system. There are plenty of awesome missions that NASA has in store for us in the future, so keep an eye out to learn more about what is currently happening in the realm of human space exploration. Thank you to our members and donors for making this video possible.
Well, thanks, Gavin, for that great video. And one thing we should point out, when Gavin was talking about Artemis, is that segment was actually filmed in August. That was before the delay in the initial launch. The launch now is set for, I believe it's the 14th. Although there's a tropical storm moving toward Florida, timed around that time, so I'm not sure how that may or may not affect it. But Artemis is so exciting, and as we mentioned before, the astronauts came here in the 1960s, but not only that, we had geologists here and engineers developing equipment, testing rovers, backpacks they would carry on the moon, the tools they would use. And that's happening still here in northern Arizona. Just a couple of weeks ago, the desert rats were here. And desert rats, it stands for, I just forgot. It has something to do with technology and testing equipment. And they were here and testing. One of the things they had was a rover, and I got to ride it. It was pretty cool. But they're also still training the astronauts. The 2017 class has done a lot of training here, and the newest class, I think they're coming out anytime. A couple geologists over at the USGS, Jim Skinner and Lauren Edgar, lead that effort to where they do some classroom training and then take the astronauts to the same places, in some cases, where the Apollo astronauts trained. And so that stuff that happened 50 years ago is not just a historic footnote, but the foundation for what's happening today. And I think one of the exciting things about Artemis is it's a new generation. Kids today, Apollo doesn't mean much, but to see people going up there, it's going to be very inspirational, I think.
Yeah.
We're explorers at heart, and to be able to see our species go up to another world, I think jealousy is one thing that I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
So, gosh, we only have, I don't know what happened to time, but we're less than 20 minutes from totality ending, and then we'll go back into partial eclipse phase. And again, we've been having some clouds moving in. Luckily, we had, for most of our broadcasts, we were able to see a live view. We've had some clouds move in. So Sarah Bircher has got some excellent photos that are still taken earlier this night of the eclipse. So we're still going to try to go in and out between live views and views that we got earlier tonight. But we actually just have a little bit of time left here. I think, gosh, 12 dozen minutes or so we'll talk. And so we'll try to take some more questions for the next dozen minutes. And then we'll sign off and just leave everybody with some final views. But again, John Compton, Kevin Schindler, we're here live from Lowell Observatory, and our behind the scenes crew that's making it all happen, Sarah Bircher, Cody Halfmoon, Heather Craig, and Nate Nice. It's just a great team effort, and to be able to share these views and what's happening with people around the world is really exciting for us. That's the core of what we do at the observatory, is to communicate science and share that inspiration. And so we're really pleased to be here. We really appreciate our donors and sponsors. We have a Friends of Lowell Observatory membership that you can sign up and become members and get regular updates about science and education that's happening, admissions to the observatory, discounts in the gift shop, admissions to science centers around the country. So if you want to learn more about Lowell or be part of the Lowell team and be a member, certainly consider joining the Friends of Lowell Observatory. So John, we've just got a little bit of time left. Just let's take some more questions.
Yeah.
Here's one that's been waiting for a little bit. Let's go back a little bit and talk about the coincidence of when we're talking about the eclipses. One of the reasons they're possible is because the apparent similarity in the size of the moon and sun. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I mean, it really is it is pure coincidence. It's beautiful, wonderful coincidence, but the moon is small compared to the Earth, but it's still huge, right? It's still a giant chunk of stuff. And it came from the Earth, and it was a lot closer at some point, and it's slowly drifting away. And it is kind of just a wonderful serendipity that it happens to be the right size to cover the sun almost perfectly, which means it's gonna will cast that nice shadow over us, and we'll cast a nice shadow over it based on the sizes they are and the distances they are. But yeah, it is just pure coincidence.
And it is neat. I mean, we live in a time when we have a North Star that's pretty darn close to true north, close enough to be accurate. Go back in time, and there's not a really good brightest star in that direction. We just happen to live at a time, because the Earth is spinning on its axis once every 26,000 years. Right now, we just happen to be pointing real close to Polaris, which is the 51st brightest star in the night sky. But the same thing with the size of the sun and the moon. That the sun is 400 times larger than the moon, but it's 400 times further away. So they appear to be the same size. What that means is in 50 million years or so, as the moon keeps getting further and further away, it won't be big enough. We won't have total solar eclipses anymore. We'll have annular eclipses for a while.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing. We just happen to live in this time right now.
We'll call it the lunar transit eventually.
I'll call it the John Compton transit. Let's scroll through some more things. And again, we'll continue trying to get live views as we can. If not, we'll show images we took earlier in the night.
Speaking on I guess while we're looking for more fun questions, when the moon was a lot larger in our view, some people believe that during a solar eclipse, that's where we get the like the Eye of Ra like symbolism, like specifically the lines coming off is part of what the solar eclipse would have looked like back in the day, based on like diffraction, because you're not going to get that perfect view. It's going to cover it up, and you're going to get these lines coming off it, which is super neat.
And we have just 9 minutes of totality left. The last totality of the moon we'll have until 2025. So enjoy it while we can. Another question we have is, what is Artemis 3? Well, Artemis 1 is the one that hopefully is going to launch on the 14th, and that's an uncrewed mission. If all goes well, and I think the timetable still holds in 2024, Artemis 2, with people on it, will fly to the moon and orbit around it. And if all goes well, Artemis 3, the following year in 2025, is when humans will again step foot on the moon, returning for the first time in 50 years, or I guess more than that, 54 years by then, or whatever it will be.
I will not be one of those people, unless get in the comments.
All right, let's scroll through here. Oops. So let's see here. John, maybe you can, while I'm looking through our comments here, maybe you can kind of recap what we've seen tonight, the eclipse and why we're seeing it.
Yeah, so we're basically seeing the Earth making shadows on the moon, right? So the sun is shining bright as ever, beautiful soul, shining light, and the Earth is sort of passing or the moon is sort of like passing into the shadow of the Earth, and Earth is literally throwing shade on the moon. It's where we get a lot of the terminology. So penumbral and the umbral and the totality phases, like so umbral, like umbrella, means shade, right, or shadow, and so we're getting you imagine a blank spotlight of shadow, whatever you call that, out in space, and the moon is slowly passing through it. And when it's in totality, it's sort of completely in that spot shadow, but it's going to start passing back out into the umbral and penumbral phases, and then be on its merry way for the next 3 years or whatever.
Okay. And we got another question asking about, we mentioned before about an event we're doing in 2024. That's the solar eclipse. And that's Eclipse over Waco Live 2024. That's going to be, total solar eclipses aren't nearly as common. And we had one, you think, oh, we just had one a few years ago in 2017, where it's stretched across a big swath of the continental United States. And the one in 2024 is gonna come up from Mexico through Texas, kind of stretching to the northeast. It'll go through my hometown in Ohio, although April in Ohio isn't a good time to look at the skies. But it could work out up into New York and beyond. And so that's going to be another so-called Great American Eclipse. That's going to be, for most of us, unless you chase eclipses around the world, that's going to be our last practical time to see a good solar eclipse, total solar eclipse. So Lowell Observatory is doing an event in Waco in partnership with the city of Waco and Baylor University. It's going to be centered right around the football stadium, both inside and outside. So, our people tailgate for football parties, football games. We'll be tailgating, as it were, with telescopes and all sorts of great activities. And Discovery is going to be broadcasting that around the world. And so that's what the 2024 event is going to be. We're excited about that. So we're let's see, 4:37. We're just 4 minutes from totality ending. And in fact, when totality ends, we're gonna sign off, and hopefully we'll still be able to give you some live views. I'm trying to get as many live views as we can because of clouds. We're going back and forth between that and some views that Sarah Bircher got earlier in the night. So John, let's just take this last few minutes to thank everybody who's watching. And we've got a couple more questions
We got time for some more
to take here, and then we'll sign off in a few minutes. Another question we've got that just came in: how long will the moon take to get from totality back to normal? And so totality ends at 4:41, and then at 6:56 is when the partial ends, and that's the umbral partial. The penumbral, as John was talking about, you can't really tell. There's a shadow, but you can't really see it. So when we think of the eclipse, well, we'll see it ends at 6:56. And for a lot of people, you're in daylight. You'll be in daylight, so you might not see it, or it won't be obvious.
Yeah. So do we have any other fun questions?
So the umbral eclipse actually ends earlier than that. The penumbral is 6:56, so it'll be before that it'll be ending.
Like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, it'll be back to normal. And the lunar eclipses they're fun because they're kind of eerie, especially if it's partly cloudy or clear. When you get that reddish moon, and that's why some people call it the blood red moon. And in culture, sometimes that's been some portent of doom. There's a great story from history. Christopher Columbus, when he was on one of his trips to Jamaica, he had lunar tables, he had astronomy tables, and knew that a total lunar eclipse was coming. And there was some fighting going on among the people there. And so to try to calm them down, he said, if you don't settle down, I'm going to take the moon away from you at this time. And he did. And the moon started getting dark, and then it went, it eclipsed. And that got by everybody's attention. And, essentially, okay, we'll be good. Okay, I'll bring the moon back.
Turn this moon around.
Right. And so he used that knowledge to that's kind of an interesting tale. It's been great to have this feed tonight and to be able to view live from Lowell Observatory. Sarah Bircher has been just doing an incredible job with the telescope. It's always a challenge when you're doing astronomy and there's clouds, because we want to show the best we can. Luckily, we had such a clear night, a clear sky earlier on, that she was able to get all sorts of images early. And so the latest ones we've been having are kind of a mix of live images and some recorded earlier in the night. So thanks, Sarah, for doing all that. Nate, Cody, and Heather keeping us going behind the scenes, because there's several different systems working here and communication is critical. And we certainly thank our viewers for watching, because this is, again, this gets at the core of who we are at Lowell Observatory, communicating science and sharing the inspiration of the cosmos. And so that it's been really great in our supporters and donors who watch these programs with us, and for all those of you who wrote in questions and comments. We got a lot of great comments, some that we didn't put in, we didn't say, they were on the YouTube feed, but besides questions, there were a lot of fun comments about people's experience and where they're viewing from and such.
We have a great community here.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all for being part of it.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, John. It's been great again.
Yeah.
And suddenly the eclipse is over. It's ending right now. So we'll sign off and leave you with some final views of tonight's eclipse. Enjoy and thank you.
Bye, nerds.
ايوه مش عنده. طب ايه بقى ما تقولي له فين اديك يوم تصحى بس كده يا عم. اي وقت استناك شحنه يا باشا امبارح بالليل. طبعا على إذا بزنس مانجر يعني
رامي احمد، الصوره اللي موجوده قدامك يا رامي في عربيه الكرة طبعا. او البراند اللي انت لا خليك رايق. هو كده كده بص كده فايز هيجيب لك الاكل وهيمشي يريح هو كمان. بالظبط. لا بسبب صاحبنا قال لك انا هقعد وعمل يومين فانا استغرب
كده ان احنا كده
خش جوه.
تقريبا 5 دقايق. فين؟ مستطيل دول في المولو حد بيساعد لو بيتكلم او
They do not want to fuck with me. You want to call them? Please do, because I think they listen to you. I think. Okay. You want to? يا جماعة هو هنا؟
تعالى
That's pretty good.
I get Delegates, could you please take your seats? We are going to begin the delivery of national statements. Thank you.
Distinguished heads of state and government, delegates, honored guests, I now open the 5th meeting of the COP27, 5th meeting of the CMP17, and 5th meeting of the CMA4. As we continue the national statements, I would like to remind representatives of the actions in place to ensure effective time management, namely the 3-minute time limit for statements during the high-level segment. Please be reminded that statements should be as concise and brief as possible, as full texts of the official statements will be made available on the UNFCCC website. Speaking slots for those who are not in the plenary at the time for delivery of their statements will be scheduled to speak at the end of all statements of the same category. Dear distinguished heads of state and government, delegates, honored guests, let us begin. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Charles Michel, President of the European Council, and Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. Excellencies, you have the floor.
Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, nous avons un revolver climatique sur notre tempe, nous sommes en sursis et la guerre de la Russie contre l'Ukraine a rendu le défi global plus complexe encore et je suis heureux que dans quelques instants, nous aurons l'occasion d'écouter le message virtuel adressé par le président Zelensky. Le Kremlin a choisi de faire de l'énergie une arme de déstabilisation massive. Il pointe cette arme directement sur l'Europe et sur les marchés mondiaux de l'énergie. Et de la même manière, le Kremlin a choisi d'instrumentaliser les produits alimentaires et les fertilisants. Et cette arme-là, comble du cynisme, est pointée sur les plus vulnérables et les pays en développement. Mesdames et Messieurs, chers amis, la guerre en Ukraine nous enseigne une leçon paradoxale. D'une part, elle conforte notre décision d'abandonner progressivement les combustibles fossiles, mais cette guerre en Ukraine provoque du désordre et un changement brusque dans les circuits d'approvisionnement et une course accrue aux combustibles fossiles. Mesdames et Messieurs, il n'y a pas l'ombre d'un doute, cette crise renforce davantage encore la détermination de l'Union européenne. Nous sommes et resterons champions de l'action climatique. Nous sommes déterminés à accélérer. Nous sommes résolus à protéger la nature, les océans, les forêts, qui constituent nos poumons, garants de la vie humaine sur Terre et de la biodiversité. Par nature, l'Union européenne est un projet de coopération et de solidarité. Et nous avons une obligation à l'égard des populations des pays en développement. Nous avons bâti notre prospérité en partie en abusant des ressources fossiles et en maltraitant la nature. Nous devons donc assumer notre part du fardeau et nous le faisons. L'Union européenne est le premier pourvoyeur de fonds pour le climat, plus de 20 milliards d'euros en 2021. Nous nous efforçons aussi de contribuer activement à la décarbonisation de l'industrie mondiale en créant des partenariats effectifs, tangibles, pour une transition énergétique équitable, juste, avec les pays du G7 et avec les pays en développement. Nous le savons, nous avons aussi une obligation envers la prochaine génération, envers les jeunes qui se lèvent, font entendre leur voix et secouent nos consciences. Et nous avons une obligation envers tous nos citoyens dans nos pays. Nous leur devons la vérité, nous leur devons la lucidité. Nous avions en Europe fondé notre transition climatique sur le modèle d'un gaz facilement disponible et abordable. Et aujourd'hui, notre objectif reste résolument le même, la neutralité climat en 2050, des émissions nettes nulles. Mais nous devons regarder la réalité telle qu'elle est et cela implique de dessiner notre stratégie de transition à la lumière du nouveau contexte géopolitique. Nous accélérons l'investissement pour le renouvelable, mais nous devrons nous appuyer sur l'ensemble des sources d'énergie de la transition. Nous devons diversifier autant que possible pour garantir la sécurité d'approvisionnement, tout en reconnaissant également que les pays en développement ont besoin de gaz pour leur développement et la transition. Mesdames et Messieurs, je termine. Nous voulons une transition juste, équitable, inclusive. Nous voulons réussir. Hier, le secrétaire général Guterres, avec des mots tranchants, a très bien résumé le choix qui s'offre à nous, le suicide ou la solidarité. Nous choisissons la solidarité, nous choisissons la vie. Le temps des promesses qui s'additionnent est passé. C'est le temps de l'engagement, c'est le temps de la réalisation. Vous pouvez compter sur l'Union européenne. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. In February, in the same week that Russia invaded Ukraine, the IPCC issued a stark warning to the global community. Its message could not have been clearer. The climate is changing faster than our capacity to adapt. So the world must deliver better and faster. The global fossil fuel crisis must be a game changer. And my friends, let us not take the highway to hell. Let us earn the clean ticket to heaven. That is our responsibility. And for Europe, the answer is Repower EU. We're not just cutting our dependency on Russian fossil fuels. That is good, but that is not enough. But we are massively accelerating the rollout of renewables. The European Union's additional renewable capacity is set to more than double this year, up to 50 gigawatt. And if we accelerate, and if we scale up, and that's our plan, we can in the next year meet a new all-time record of over 100 gigawatt of additional renewable capacity. Because we know that every kilowatt hour of electricity that we generate from renewable sources like solar and wind and green hydrogen is not only good for our climate, but also good for our independence and our security of supply. And here, the Global South has the resources in abundance. So let's team up. And that is why the European Union is signing new hydrogen partnerships with Egypt, with Namibia, with Kazakhstan. That is why we are supporting partners such as Vietnam and South Africa to decarbonize their economies. We need to reach the Paris goals, and Europe is staying the course. We will reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% till 2030, and that's cast in law. With our Fit for 55 package, we're putting in place the most ambitious legal framework worldwide, and we call on all major emitters to increase their ambitions too. And in addition, we need tangible progress on our global goal for adaptation. Those most in need in the developing world must be supported in adapting to a harsher climate. And this is also why the COP must make progress on averting, minimizing, and addressing loss and damage from climate change. It is high time to put this on the agenda. And finally, we urge our partners in the global north to step up their climate finance to the global south. Team Europe is providing its fair share of the $100 billion promise. For the second year in a row, we have exceeded 23 billion euros, despite the COVID pandemic, despite the Russian war. And a big bulk of our climate finance goes already to adaptation. So it is doable, and we call on others to step up too. My message to you today is Europe is staying the course, so let's do this journey together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Andry Nirina Rajoelina, President of Madagascar. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Excellences, Monsieur le Secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Monsieur le Secrétaire exécutif de la Convention cadre des Nations Unies sur le changement climatique, Monsieur le Président de la COP27, chers leaders, Majestés, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, honorable assistance. C'est au nom de mon pays Madagascar que j'adresse mes vives félicitations au président Al-Sisi, la République arabe d'Égypte et au peuple égyptien pour l'accueil de ce sommet de la COP27. Un rendez-vous incontournable pour sauver notre planète. Alertés par l'importante dégradation de notre environnement, les leaders mondiaux avaient décidé d'organiser la première édition de la COP en 1995. Voilà maintenant 27 ans que nous, leaders, nous réunissons régulièrement chaque année pour nous concerter sur la lutte contre le changement climatique. À l'époque, une des résolutions prises avait été de réduire les gaz à effet de serre. Aujourd'hui, en 2022, nous en sommes à la 27e édition et nous devons nous interroger sur le bilan de nos réunions et de nos actions. En 2045, c'est-à-dire d'ici 23 ans, nous marquerons les 50 ans de la COP. Et une question se pose. Avons-nous pu protéger notre planète? Qu'allons-nous concrètement laisser à nos générations futures? Aujourd'hui, la situation se dégrade considérablement. La désertification, les périodes de forte aridité causant de graves situations de famine, la baisse de la pluviométrie entraînant la diminution du rendement agricole, les cyclones de plus en plus fréquents et de plus en plus violents, les multiples inondations détruisant les infrastructures et les cultures, les nombreux feux de forêt ravageant nos terres. En résumé, notre planète brûle, nos écosystèmes se dégradent, mais nos actions et les financements ne suivent pas. Nos peuples souffrent et en sont les premières victimes. Mesdames et messieurs, chers leaders, les conséquences du changement climatique sont dévastatrices. Il est grand temps de passer à l'action. Les constats, nous les avons faits. Agissons maintenant. Les engagements pris lors de la COP26 doivent se concrétiser. Nous devons en accélérer la mise en œuvre. Le thème choisi cette année pour la COP27, Ensemble pour la réalisation, nous interpelle tous. Cela doit tout simplement pas passer ni être un slogan, cela doit être concrétisé et c'est une urgence. Car sur les 100 milliards de dollars d'engagement par an, combien ont été décaissés à ce jour? Malgré son statut de pays vulnérable, Madagascar fait partie des 5 premiers pays à avoir initié le mécanisme REDD+. Notre plan d'adaptation est opérationnel depuis 2021. Nous avons adopté récemment notre deuxième CDN. Nous unissons notre voix avec toutes les nations qui subissent les conséquences du dérèglement climatique pour accélérer et faciliter le déblocage du Fonds vert climat. Avec notre plan émergence, Madagascar, nous avons investi sur des projets innovants pour construire un avenir juste, propre et durable. Notre grande île dispose de 5603 km de côte. Nous avons donc un immense potentiel avec nos mangroves et nous ambitionnons de devenir le pays modèle carbone bleu. Nous n'avons pas le droit à l'échec. Ensemble, engageons en faveur du développement durable pour une meilleure humanité. Mesdames et messieurs, je dis ici un seul mot, une seule phrase. Que Dieu bénisse notre planète. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Abdalfa Al-Burhan Abdurrahman, Head of the Transitional Sovereignty Council of the Republic of Sudan. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. يطيب لي في البدء أن أشكر فخامة الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي ونسجي التحية عبره لحكومة وشعب جمهورية مصر العربية لتمهيدهم السبيل لاستضافة هذا المؤتمر العالمي الهام ولحسن الاستقبال المعهود لديهم. كما أتوجه بالشكر الجزيل لكل القائمين على أمر هذا المحفل العالمي الهام. الحضور الكريم، لقد أصبح تغير المناخ من أكبر الظواهر البيئية التي تؤرق العالم أجمع، وذلك لأن تداعياته أثرت بشكل مباشر على القطاعات الحيوية المرتبطة بحياة الناس ومعاشهم، والسودان كغيره من الدول تأثر بذلك. وقد أدى هذا الواقع إلى موجات من النزوح والحراك السكاني الداخلي والإقليمي، مما تسبب في نزاعات حول الموارد بين المجتمعات المتأثرة بهذه المتغيرات. إن اتفاقية باريس لتغير المناخ تتميز بالشمول الذي يؤهلها للنجاح في تنفيذ أهدافها الرامية إلى توطيد الاستجابة العالمية للتهديد الناجم من تغير المناخ، سواء كان ذلك في سياق التنمية المستدامة أو جهود تخفيف حدة الفقر وغيرهم. فالسودان يعقد آمالا كبيرة على تنفيذ هذه الاتفاقية ويتبنى سياسات تنموية تساهم في خفض الانبعاثات الحرارية اتساقا مع أهداف التنمية المستدامة. يعد السودان من أكثر الدول تأثرا بالتغيرات المناخية، خاصة في القطاعات الحيوية والإنتاجية المتمثلة في الزراعة والمياه والصحة والأمن الغذائي. فالقطاع الزراعي المطري التقليدي قد تضاءل كثيرا، وهو الذي يعتمد عليه ثلث السكان في توفير الغذاء. أيضا تدهورت المراعي الطبيعية، مما أدى إلى نشوء احتكاكات بين المزارعين والرعاة والمجتمعات المستغرة والمتنقلة، فضلا عن فقدان التنوع الحيوي داخل الغابات والمحميات الطبيعية. كل ذلك أدى إلى موجات من النزوح والهجرة وما تبعهما من آثار على البيئة. حضور الكريم، نؤكد لكم التزام السودان بكل ما يقتضيه تنفيذ الاتفاقية الإطارية لتغير المناخ وجميع الاتفاقيات الأخرى لقمة باريس حول المناخ وبروتوكول كيوتو. وتأسيسا على هذا الالتزام أعد السودان وأجاز وثيقة المساهمات المحددة وطنيا ورفعها إلى موقع سكرتارية الاتفاقية الإطارية في 22 سبتمبر من العام 22. وشملت هذه الوثيقة مشروعات في جانب تخفيف الفقر والتكيف مع آثار التغيرات المناخية. وعلى المستوى الإقليمي شارك السودان في المؤتمر الوزاري الإقليمي بشأن البيئة والهجرة والمناخ في يوليو 22، والذي تمخض عنه إعلان كمبالا بشأن هذه الموضوعات. أيضا شارك السودان الذي يرأس منظمة الإيقاد في دورتها الحالية في وضع الاستراتيجية الإقليمية لتغير المناخ لدول الإيقاد، والتي أقرت في منبسة كينيا في أكتوبر من العام 22. وفي هذا الشهر ترأس السودان المؤتمر الإقليمي للأرض والصراع، والذي خرج بإعلان كمبالا في أوغندا بشأن الأرض أيضا والصراع. كل هذا الجهد يؤكد على التزام السودان بهذه الأطر والاتفاقيات الإقليمية والدولية المتعلقة بتغير المناخ. في ختام حديثي لا يسعني إلا أن نجدد الشكر والتقدير للدولة المضيفة الشقيقة مصر وإلى كل من أسهم في إنجاح هذا المؤتمر من الدول والحكومات والمنظمات، ونأمل أن يحقق هذا المؤتمر أهدافه. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, President of Somalia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Excellencies, heads of states and governments, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and privilege to deliver the national statement of my country, Somalia, at this council, at this crucial COP27 in Egypt. I thank Egypt and President Abdel Fattah Sisi, as well as all other international partners for bringing us together in this, to discuss what can only be described as the greatest challenge facing our world today. All the available scientific evidence across the world clearly shows that temperatures and sea levels are rising and droughts and floods are increasing. Food security is weak and climate-induced conflict over resources like water and livestock pasture are common, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, which is dealing with one of the worst droughts in the modern history. The presence of so many leaders in this meeting today gives me a confidence that not only is the issue of climate change being taken seriously internationally, but that during COP27, genuine plans and strategies will be negotiated, agreed, and implemented quickly to ensure we mitigate and adapt to its costly destructive effects across the world. In 2022, over 800 million people, majority of them from Africa, are food insecure. In Somalia, over 7 million people cannot meet their basic food needs and require urgent humanitarian assistance. We need to ask ourselves, why are we here after 26 years? The answer is one, and it is climate change and conflict. What's evident is that there is no equity or fairness in global climate burden sharing, because the nations who produce the least green gases emissions, like Somalia, pay the highest price twice. First, their citizens do not benefit from the developing nations' industrialization, and their own nations usually have minimum industrial output or capacity. And secondly, they seldom have the fiscal space or technology and expertise to respond to the effects of the climate change, which directly hampers their development aspirations and citizens' health and well-being. In Somalia, we are most vulnerable to climate change. Climate change is a political, security, economic challenge for us, and we are taking it very seriously. In this regard, we have dedicated a new ministry and launched a new Somalia Green Initiative to address the matter head-on. Today, Somalia is facing a humanitarian crisis which we are desperately trying to respond to. Because of current drought, we have also had severe floods which have destroyed key infrastructure, prime agricultural land, as well as the livelihoods of entire communities. Today's global food and energy insecurity is disproportionately affecting Somalia because of the impact of the climate change and our people's inability to grow their own crops, because of the ongoing drought as a direct consequence urbanization, and all its environmental impact are also on the rise. This is not sustainable and acceptable. Climate mitigation and adaptation strategies and plans need to be rapidly implemented in Somalia to safeguard the lives and the livelihood of our most vulnerable citizens. However, this requires real resources, including accessible grant-based financing and investment in climate resilience in key areas, including water management, infrastructure, and renewable energy. This is vital because many of the developing nations and least developed nations like Somalia are still struggling with the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and national debt sustainability issues, and they must not be left behind. Furthermore, existing national, regional, and international climate early warning systems are not only useful where we can finance early effective action to mitigate and adapt quickly. In Somalia, we have one of the longest coasts in the world, vast arable land, and we are striving to build an economically stable future which both benefits from our strategic location and enormous natural resources potential, including the blue economy. However, we must take urgent action today to work with all our international partners to ensure we make the climate adaptation and mitigation investments that will make this reality tomorrow. In this age of global interconnectivity and interdependency, we must not think in silos or developed versus developing nations, because the looming existential climate disaster does not care for these distinctions. Climate change is complex, and it's not going to magically disappear. In this regard, we must respond to this single greatest challenge to the humanity today, together, and on the firm basis of solidarity, multilateralism. International cooperation is the only way out. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is now my pleasure to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Nekaneke Urabravu, President of UNATU. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President, Mr. Executive Secretary, Excellencies, more than 3 decades ago, we began this process to stabilize greenhouse gas to prevent dangerous climate change. Clearly, something is not working as emissions continue to rise. Climate finance remains wholly inadequate. The 1.5-degree limit will soon be crossed, and the resulting climate injustice is suffered daily across the planet. Fundamental human rights are being undermined every minute of every day across the planet. Our collective addiction to fossil fuels are mainly responsible. Excellencies, it is time for this process to be dealt with effectively. We must bring additional tool that will inspire the real state action that is required. Vanuatu is of the opinion that states have existing legal obligation that under a range of international fundamental laws to protect the rights of present and future generation from the adverse impacts of climate change. The UNFCCC does not is not intended to operate in isolation, nor does it absolve the party of their legal obligation under the other treaties they have ratified. Excellencies, Vanuatu, alongside a global coalition of more than 85 nations, is now calling for the United Nations to legally review international law from the International Court of Justice to help make better climate decision. In just a few weeks, the General Assembly will inspire real action to save the goals of the Paris Agreement and maintain the integrity of the climate change. The International Court of Justice process is inclusive. All states are invited to share their views on how to bring better understanding to legal consistency and coherence to climate change.